Hi
Letting you know
everyone.
that I need to leave at like.
Okay. Please. Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome to another Sunday Smile. My name is Ibtihal Badawi. I'm an expressionistic artist and cultural explorer where I use my art to explore and to build bridges between different cultures to build a stronger community. So that's why I create Sunday Smiles. And today we have a special guest. Hi, Maram. It froze.
Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you. So tell us who you are and what you're doing and what about your books. I'm so excited to learn more.
Yeah, I'm a fantasy and steampunk author. I published a book called Weathernose in 2019. It's a children's steampunk book, and it's about wacky, colorful steampunk universe called the Cerulean universe. And the story is about a cranky old weatherman who wakes up one day to find that his career is being sabotaged because an old girl has invented a machine that can predict the weather. So he sets out on this kind of vendetta against her to destroy her and her machine, but she proves to be way smarter than him.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a really fun story, right? So that was my last publication. I also have another book called The Road to Elephant. This one is a dark fantasy and it's not for kids. But I do think of myself as a children's fantasy author. Most of the work that I do is for children.
That's nice. So when did you start to write?
I started writing very young. My mom insists that I started writing when I was maybe like at third grade or something. And that's true. I was scribbling a lot, like I was writing stories. But I think that the moment for me that was kind of like an epiphany that I actually made a conscious decision to be a writer was I was in sixth grade. And I had a wonderful English teacher who honestly scared the daylights out of me, but also was very inspiring.
That's nice that you start from young age. I think kids know that when they are at young age, they know what they want to be. They know what they love and what they like. Most of kids know. Like, so what's your muse? You know, every artist, every author have the muse. What's your muse that inspire you or
It's really interesting that you just said that people know what they want. A lot of people, I wouldn't generalize, but I do think that people at around the age of 10 or 11, you're usually pretty sure of what you love, or you have an idea of what you love. And for me, that was very clear that it was I think that was where the decision came from. It was at that age because it was the age of just really having an intuitive sense of what was inspiring and what made life joyful. My muse, I don't know. Travel is definitely a muse for me because I like to collect little snippets of images and characters and textures from my travels. Like I'll see something and I'll go, oh, okay, that. And someday it's going to end up in a story, and eventually it does. But yeah, I'm also. I don't think I've been a writer had I not been a reader. So I would say the first and foremost, like the first muse has been other authors whose work I just loved.
So who's the author that you love since your little girl that really opened that window of, wonder to you?
Um, hmm. Loving Charles Dickens, and I think one of my favorite novels, and it's still one of my favorite novels, is Tale of Two Cities. I thought that book had such an impact on me. It was so powerful, and even at a young age, I was able to see or understand the philosophy behind the book, and I just thought it was stunning. It was just a stunning story. But I also read fantasy. I read the Narnia books. I read Harry Potter until a little bit later, but I was pretty aware of my leaning towards fantasy very early on.
That's nice that you learn what even type of writing you want to do it. Like since young age you love fantasy and that's the way to go to it. And I think it's amazing when you know what you want, what you love,
Yeah.
and with time it blossom.
Yeah.
So Melissa, it looked like you have a question.
You know me too well. No, because I am, I dabble in writing. I'm not going to say I'm an author, but I do enjoy writing and I write fictions. I enjoy making things up. But one of the really impressive things that fantasy writers do, and I have kind of a two-part question. One about the steampunk, I'll ask that one after. But this one is, as a fantasy writer, how do you create your worlds? Because fantasy doesn't really work unless the world that you put the story in also works.
Yes.
So what's your approach to that?
I think that with fantasy, there has to be a period of time where you let the world unfold without you resist the temptation to want to jump in and write it. There has to be a period of percolation and collection. And I used to have binders where I just collected images from magazines, and like I said, from travel, I'll collect stuff if it and I'll just put it in that binder as a lookbook. And it's hard to manufacture a fantasy world doesn't ring true. It has to ring true. Like there has to be a transcendental part of you that really believes that this world exists in such a way that is so believable that you are able to interpret or write the details for the reader. Because, as an author, you really just you're a translator of some magical force.
Well, that is.
I mean, I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of beginner writers try to write fantasy and manufacture a world from a very cerebral, space, and that doesn't really work because you end up doing is pieces from other people's work, the work that you've read, and you try to manufacture it. You try to get it to be believable. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I think what I'm trying to say is that world building is very intuitive, and it has to come to you in such a way that you don't know why you believe it, but you just do. It's exists, but it's another dimension, and unfortunately we can't go there. And your job is just to write it, to make it.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense to me. And it's interesting that you mentioned younger writers, because in one of the writing groups I participate in, there's a young man he's a gamer, but he is a creator of game worlds. And he's kind of doing what you're talking about. He's creating all of this world with all of these rules. And I'm more of your school. Sometimes they call us pantsers. We fly by the seat of our pants. But to me, there's a lot of organic growth, because if everything is already planned out, if your character takes an unexpected yet interesting turn that doesn't fit your rules, you can't do that.
Yeah. There's a part of me that believes that you can teach it. There's a part of me that believes that you can like write an article that goes like 5 things that you need to do in order to build a world, or the top 3 tips to whatever. I think there's a part of me that believes that you can teach it and you can kind of relay that information to aspiring writers, but at the part that believes that it's no, you have to. It's something that's beyond you. It's not something you can construct. It just happens. It just arrives. And you just happen to be fortunate enough to get a glimpse of this world that really exists in another dimension.
Makes total sense. And now my other question is kind of a completely different direction. This one, I was interested that the children's steampunk, you mentioned it was a little girl who had designed the machine to defeat the Weatherman, basically. Did you pick your characters on purpose? And the reason I ask that is because I come from, my family background is a lot of women in science. And that is one of the hard things to get young girls interested in, because, it's not what little girls do. And I just wondered if that was part of your goal, or did it just kind of happen?
No, again, okay. I don't think it was intentional on my part. Cypress, the character from the book, actually just showed up. For me, she was a surprise. And I didn't even have to like construct her physical features. Like she was just there. Like personality, I knew how she spoke, and I was just the conduit. But also this because I come from a family of really smart girls, like really smart girls. My little sister, whom I dedicated the book to, is one of these very, very smart girls who are too smart for their own good. Well, I don't know if it's fair to say they're all good. There's no such thing, but you know what I mean.
I do. Yeah, it's too smart for other people's good, or other people's opinions at least. I understand completely. It's very interesting, and it's you are actually on my wish list of books to buy now because of that. And one of the things that my family collects are books that talk about, women in history, women in science, whether it's in a fantasy setting or a historical setting. So I think that's going to be an interesting add.
Yeah. And I think that I don't know if it was meant to be that way, or it's just because it's taken me so long to have the courage to actually look out there. Self-published this book. It's on Amazon. But I don't know if the book would have been, relevant at the time when I wrote it. So I wrote this book back in 2006. That was my first draft. And then around 2019, before I published it, was when I decided, oh, okay, so I have this really great story, and it's always been a great story, and I love it. I still love it after all these years. I'm just gonna, polish it, maybe have it or help me with it, and I published it. But I think that it feels like an opportune moment to share it, because this is an age where children are too smart for their own good, and it's an age where technology and robots are taking our place. And there's a lot of talk about how a word, I can't find it, how artificial intelligence is what I'm looking for, how artificial is starting to infiltrate our lives, and how people start to lose their jobs because a lot of this stuff can be programmed and you can replace a human being.
And I think that's always an interesting philosophy to look at, because the existence of artificial intelligence makes us think about what being human really is. Because if those jobs go away and these programmable things go away, it almost forces us to go back into curiosity, which we've gotten very bad about. Because now you have to figure out, okay, if I'm not needed for those things anymore, what do I do? And so it's both a threat and an opportunity. So that's fascinating.
Yeah.
No, but I would very much like to hear. And I was curious, what made you go steampunk at that time? Because steampunk was not a thing in 2006. Not really.
Oh. And that's the curious thing. I'm still fascinated by this. I didn't know that there was such a thing called steam. I didn't know. And back then, I just thought of it as, this aesthetic where it looks Victorian, but it's not Victorian, and it's modern, and there's technology and there are robots, but it looks Victorian. That was how I rationalized it in my head. And I thought I was the only one who was fascinated by this. But then later on, when I was in grad school, I think I was talking to one of my professors about this, and he was like, "Yeah, it's called steampunk." And he gave me a book about steampunk, and I was like, finally, this is a thing. It has a name. It's called steampunk. So my world isn't exactly Victorian. Like it borrows a lot of the steampunk aesthetic, but it's more, the steampunk aesthetic and a tropical aesthetic. Like the world, the cerulean universe is very lush and it's very tropical. As those like the kind of like the waistcoats and the clockwork and the blimps. So I tend to say it's steampunk-ish. It's not fully.
Yeah. But it's still interesting. And I don't know, there are probably subgenres that I don't know about, genres I don't know about either, because I only discovered it was called steampunk a couple of years ago myself, because I've always enjoyed reading anything that mixes in a not highly scientific way, that mixes the technology with regular people rather than scientists and people in outer space and things like that, because that's a very interesting place to be. But it's funny that you were obsessed with that at such an early time.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't trace how this arrived in my imagination. It just did, and I loved it. I thought I was the only.
I
don't want to say.
Maybe,
I don't want to say I thought I invented it.
no.
I didn't know anyone.
Oh, but did you ever think maybe it came with this character who burst into your head fully developed, who already spoke to you and it kind of had a story that she needed to tell, it sounds like? You use the word percolating. I use that word a lot for those things that you're not really thinking about, but they're there. It sounds like she percolated for until she was ready.
Yeah. The early universe was actually it went through this evolution. The aesthetic of the cerulean universe is, and it went through evolution. I actually first saw this place when I was 13 years old. I was at some beach resort with my family at the Red Sea, and it was dark. It was night, and across from me in a channel of water, pump of lights, like this cluster of lights, and it looked like it was probably just factories and stuff. But at night, it looked like that was lit with torches. And I started to hear music, and I started to see the people, and I was so enchanted by this, but I didn't have a story yet. So that place kind of went through this evolution until I was 22 or 23 when I wrote Weathernose. By the time I was ready to write it, it had fully developed into steampunk world.
Interesting. Thank you.
I'm
Thank
writing
you.
a sequel.
Oh, nice.
Hey.
So do you have like, when you write, do you have anything you do, special things you do, like mantras, things you have a special place or a special corner, or you go somewhere? Do you do any techniques before you write, or it just comes to you? It just
No,
comes to you.
I just don't feel my way around it. But one thing that I can definitely say has been pattern for me as a writer is whenever I'm writing a piece or a specific kind of, so every piece has its soundtrack. Like before I start writing or while I'm writing, I find myself collecting music that takes me to that place. It doesn't matter if it's like lyrics or just instrumental, it doesn't really matter. It's just kind of the mood of the music. If it takes me to that place, in a soundtrack, in a playlist, and I'll play it every time I write in that world so that I can stay grounded there.
Wow, that's amazing. Music
is
has power, really. It really takes you to a different realm. I think for me as an artist, when I paint, I also listen to music too.
I can't really explain to you like how I choose the music or why this piece reminds me of that world or not. It's just I don't know, it's a sense. Like if I hear music and I immediately start to see images from that world, then I'll go Shazam. Of course, there was no Shazam back then, but
I used to watch when I was little Bionic 6, and there's that girl. She's like Shazam. She's fast.
yeah.
So
I'm old enough that there was Shazam when I was a
Bionic.
but the old one.
So I really look forward to read your book. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I want you guys to have a small piece of paper so we can do the exercise before you go.
My notebook.
It's okay, anything that it works. So now, guys, I want you to get your hand and place it on your heart. And let's close our eyes and take a couple of deep breaths, okay? I want you to feel the beat of your heart. So let's inhale. 1, 2, 3. Hold it for 1, 2, 3. Then exhale. 1, 2, 3. Let's do this for 2 times and you count, okay? And feel the beats. Now I want you to open your eyes and I want you to draw your heartbeat. Draw your heartbeat. Like what you felt, I want you to draw.
It's a lovely exercise.
Thank you. The first time I do it. So, do you have anything? This one. Oh, I love it. Everyone have a different heartbeat. It's amazing. So, guys, thank you for joining us. And before you go, I want you to give yourself a hug and tell yourself that you love yourself. And thank you so much for joining us, Maram. I have such amazing time, and you really inspire me. Like you opened that for me as an artist. I get inspired with pictures, with words, with everything around me. Just I don't know, just like it's like a spark. There is a spark, and so today you spark my heart, my brain, and you inspire me to paint. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a great week, guys. Bye.